All right, welcome everyone to the Maxon booth here at Day 3 NAB. I'm your host, Matthias, aka Major VFX on all the social media platforms, broadcasting the 3D Motion Show. For those of you who don't know in the audience, the 3D Motion Show is where we showcase amazing artists and how they use Maxon One products in their workflow. Today, I'm accompanied by our resident AI, Ellie Wade, and Chad Perkins. So they're going to be showcasing some of the amazing Red Giant and Redshift. Are we doing some Redshift? What are we doing?
We're doing C4D, a little bit of Redshift, and then Red
all
Giant.
the reds.
Oh, wow. We're doing all the reds instead of C4D. So, all right, I'll let you two take it from here. Chad Perkins, Ellie Wade, let's give them a big round of applause.
Thank you. Yes, as Matthias said, we are Chad Perkins and Ellie Wade, or as we call ourselves, Team Chelly, around the Maxon offices. And we do different things. So Ellie handles like Cinema 4D and Redshift, and I do like a lot of the Red Giant After Effects stuff. So we thought it'd be kind of cool to show our workflow because we like working together and such. What am I missing, Ellie?
No, that's good, yeah.
Okay,
we like to collaborate, don't we? So we like to do like the pipeline between C4D, Redshift, and Red Giant. And what's really nice is I'm learning the Red Giant side of things, and Chad's learning like the Redshift side of things, so it's working really nicely, and we're doing a whole bunch of live shows together in sort of like past and future, and now we're doing them here at
Right
NAB,
now, this very
which is really cool. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into what we're going to do. So this is going to be the final outcome, and we're doing an animated version of this. And what we're going to do, we're going to start by creating the impact animation inside of C4D. Then hopefully I'm going to show how we created this material in Redshift. And then we're going to hand over to Chad, who's going to make it look super cool like this with Red Giant. Woo. So this is the sort of comp inside of C4D. So nothing too crazy, but as we saw in the final render, it's going to end up looking pretty cool. So let me just start a new project. And what we're going to do, we're going to grab ourselves some stuff just to set this up. So this is going to be like our base, and this is what we're going to fracture and create that impact animation and create all that cracking with.
Is it too early to interrupt you?
Never too early to interrupt me.
This is like what we do like anytime like we're presenting for reels. Like we're always like, hey, wait, stop. Let me ask you a question.
We do love that.
So like why would you use a cube and not a plane? Because wouldn't they do the same thing? Or
so
no?
I'm using the cube because I'm going to then fracture it. I want to have like almost layers of like the Voronoi fracture. So if it was just a plane, we're not going to get that nice like depth.
Yeah. Thinking ahead.
Thinking ahead.
You know your stuff.
I do. Only a little. And let's just grab some text. And what's nice about this setup is it's all relative. So you could do any kind of text, and you could do any kind of, you could have this as like a logo and it would work. So let's just sort of type the word like impact. That's what we went for. And I'm going to grab myself I need like a good font. Let's just do like a nice thick font here. Futura. I'm going to make this a bit smaller. Classic font. So I'm just going to set this up because I want to show you how like quickly we can build this stuff from scratch. And so that's basically going to be the plan. We're going to build that entire setup from scratch. So we have our text here, and what we want to do, we want to make it dynamic. So it's going to fall down, and it's going to hit our base, going to hit our floor, and then we're going to then animate the Voronoi fracture and the plane effector to give it the impression that the text is actually causing that, but really it's faked, because why not?
I didn't know that.
So we're going to make this dynamic. So I'm going to just make a rigid body tag on our text. And actually on my text, let me, the only way I can make things a little bit fancier, out of cap. And then we need to make sure our base, and in our case, our cube, is a collider. And then if we just play this through, we can see our text is going to fall and it's going to land. Cool. Let's get our text. Let's have a little bit more of like a thing going on. Okay, cool. That looks a little bit nicer.
I feel like I want to say how impressed I am that that's that easy, but then it'll feel like an infomercial to everybody. Like, wow, that's so easy. But
cool.
Seriously, though, that is actually impressive.
It is like a couple of clicks and you've got a dynamic animation. cool, so what I'm going to do, I've played this through so I know where my text is landing, and so now I can build up my Voronoi fracture, and then we can sort of cache our dynamics and do some cool stuff. So the way that we can fracture something super easily inside of C4D is by grabbing a Voronoi fracture. And because I want to fracture my base, which is my cube, I'm just going to drop that into there, and we can see we now have some fractured pieces. And it's all colorized for us as well, so we can see how this is looking. So I'm just going to come into my sources, and this is what's controlling. This source is what's defining and controlling our individual pieces. So we can actually drop a whole bunch of things in there, and in like previous sessions, I've done some different stuff with like a matrix, and as have like other trainers. But we are going to keep the point generator. And what we're going to do, we're going to build up a couple of different point generators and blend them together and make it look like we've got some like tiny little nice detailed pieces and then some slightly bigger pieces. And it's going to all add to like just a nicer looking kind of cracking effect. So I'm going to keep this one in here, and I'm actually going to set my distribution type to normal, and it's basically going to pull all of those points in. And then we can control our standard deviation. We can pull them in even more or pull them out. So I'm going to pull them like all the way in. Let's go to here. And let me just make this a bit more centered. And I'm going to have a whole load more points. And more points means more fracture pieces. Simple as that. And so at the moment, it's all kind of like centered to the middle of the cube. What I want to do, I want it to be spread across where all of my text and all of my letters are. And so what we need to do, we can just come down into our transform of our point generator. And if I just sort of move that out of the way.
Sorry.
It's all good. I'm trying to sort of pull that across. There we go. I can now just scale this along. And now those pieces are now being scaled all the way across. And so where this cracking is, it's where our letters are. And it's going to add to this effect. And we can do the same on our z-axis if we want to as well. So I might pull that all the way in here. And I've got some nice little detailed pieces now in like the center of where our impact happens. And then to add another source, all I have to do is click Add Distribution Source. So that's my first one, and this is now my second one. And I'm going to do a similar kind of effect. I'm going to make slightly larger pieces. So if I do normal again, pull them in again like a little bit, and maybe go like 200. And all this is like just being like creative and being artistic with it. So it's not like, oh, you have to do it like this and you have to do this number of points. It's like, oh, I think this looks cool, this looks nice. And so that's what I'm going to do. So let me just pull these in again. And I think I ended up with sort of like 3, because I want some slightly bigger pieces as well. So let's do one last time, and it's all the same thing. Maybe like 100. Cool, so now we have some slightly bigger pieces. So what we have, if we have a look in here, if we sort of switch these off, is nice little toggles. So we have our really small detailed bits, which are really kind of like centered to where the text is first going to hit. Then we have our second point distribution, which are these slightly bigger bits, slightly further away. And then we have our third, which are these like large bits on the outside. And this is the Voronoi fracture setup. So how do we now make it look like this is cracking as our text is hitting it? And so what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to switch off colorized fragments. And the way that we can do that is we can use our wonderful MoGraph effectors. And all I'm going to do is grab a plane effector, and everything's going to be shot up 100 centimeters, because that's the default. What I'm actually going to do is I want my pieces to go down. So as the impact happens, I need them to kind of like look like they're sort of coming down into our cube, which is why we use the cube. So we get those. We're going to see that nice little depth going on.
I get it. Okay.
So I'm actually going to love switching off the work plane. So I've set a value of -8 in the y-axis, and we can't really see anything yet. And that's because we want to use a field to control only the area where we have our cracking. And so the field here is actually quite important, because I want to have like a nice curve. So I want to have like the bits in the middle to be a lot further down, so our -8, and I want it to kind of have like a gradual sort of like bit of depth to it. And so we could use like a spherical field, but because my text is quite long, I'm going to go for I think it was like a capsule field I went for. Yeah, so this will work, and then change our axis. And then it's just a case of positioning this in the right place. So So this is sort of what we have. And we can perfect this a little bit more. Maybe we sort of like pull this up there. So this is okay. I don't want to spend too much time sort of like just tweaking this because there's a few more steps. So I'm just going to leave this as this for now. Maybe we can sort of actually just make this like 85 and 85. Cool. So now we have this effect. We have this sort of thing going on. And so what we need to do, we just need to animate our capsule field. And so we can kind of see where our text is hitting. So it's roughly like frame 17, 18. It just needs to be rough for now. Like I'm not too worried about making it like specific. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab my capsule field. And so it's about like what we said about like 18. So let's get sort of like this. Go to frame 18. And I'm going to set a keyframe on the y-axis. And then I'm going to go up, so we see no cracking. And I'm going to go back a frame. Let me sort of pull that up. And then we can do like a couple of frames later, and then pull it all the way down, something like that. So now what happens is we play this through. So we can see that it's a little bit too late. So as I said, this just needs to be rough. We can like tweak this and define this later on. But we have that going on. So we've sort of animated our cracking as our text hits down. But if I just sort of go like this, not that, it's actually floating along the top. And that's because our collider is on our cube. And so it can't see that like the Voronoi fracture has been sort of separated down into this area. It's not able to fall down. And so the way that we can kind of fake this and create the effect is we just duplicate our cube. We're going to take the collider off the cube that's being fractured, and then we're going to animate this cube down as it hits. So what have we got it hitting at? Frame 15. So all I need to do is on my cube that is now my collider, animate the y-axis, maybe like 2 frames across. We can pull it down to something like, we want it just to be kind of on show, like that. And so now what's going to happen, if I hide it, and we play it through, you can't even see it. And because we've got like a top angle, it doesn't need to be like perfect. But now we have that little drop. So it just looks a bit better. Okay, so we have this going on. We've got this bit sorted. So now I've done that side of it, I can then cache my text. And so I can just come into my dynamics. Just gonna bake this. And so we saw that was like super fast. And now what happens is as I play it through, we've baked it. And so now I can come over and make sure everything is kind of happening at the right time. So we can see it's sort of like, yeah, so we're pretty spot on anyway. So as it hits, it sort of goes like that.
So once you cache it, it kind of like, it can shift a little bit? It can like...
Well, the good thing with caching is we can now go through our timeline like this. It doesn't have to recalculate the dynamics every time.
Okay.
And so where we sort of like guessed how to, like where, like what keyframe it was hitting, now we've baked it, we can get it spot on.
Okay.
But for some miracle reason, we did anyway, which is great. Cool, so the next step is just to make this look a little bit more interesting, we can come into our top view. And what we can do, we can slightly art direct our Voronoi fracture by using splines, and then we can use our splines inside of our plane effector to add some more cracking. So if I just go to my top view, because that's going to make it a little bit easier for me to draw my splines, I'm going to come and grab my little spline pen. All I'm going to do is just maybe draw some crazy looking lines. And then maybe I'll only do 2. Maybe like this. If I was doing this again, I would spend a lot more, time on this stuff. But for the sake of this, I don't want to spend too much time just sort of like drawing my splines and tweaking stuff. I just want to show you guys how to do it. So we've got our splines. We've got our like crazy looking lightning splines. We can drop them inside of our plane effector. So we can drop that into here. And it's going to look a little bit strange at first, and that's because we need to control our blending modes. So if we come over to our blending and we change this to max, it's going to add it on. And then we click our spline, and then we want to change it to radius. And then we can control our radius like this. And so now what we've done, if I just do the same thing again, if I drop my second spline, let me drop that in there, drop my second spline into here, and just do the exact same thing. Set it to max, set it to the radius, and then increase that something like, maybe like that. Now what we can do, we can animate our splines coming down, and it just adds to like a different effect. So we can sort of animate these down as well. So I'm going to pull them up here, and so we have everything hitting at about 15, don't we? So let's animate our splines, something like here, and then at like, maybe it's 17, so it all happens a little bit later. We pull them down, set another keyframe. And so it just makes it look a little bit more interesting because we have some additional cracks going on. And we could animate the spline down so it sort of like goes like that, and it makes it look like it's sort of doing that effect. But
like how?
Oh god! At least people can actually see me when I do this, like at home, and it's like a virtual session. People can't see that I'm actually doing these things. I'm like this, and like the camera's off, and I'm like, no one can see what I'm doing, which is probably a good thing actually.
We felt it though in our hearts.
Cool. Right. So yeah, this was the animation. This is exactly how we create that animation. I just added a few extra little splines and kind of tweaked this and perfected it a little bit more. But now I want to show how we created the texture, because the texture is in Redshift. And so let's do what we do. We change our render to Redshift, and then just grab our Redshift render view. I'm just going to dock that and kick this off. And it looks obviously absolutely beautiful. And just set up some simple lighting just so I can show how we do the texture. So I'm just going to go to the asset browser and grab myself a HDR image just so we can get some nicer lighting, because I always like to have a little bit of like lighting set up as I create my textures and my materials just to see how they're looking. So let's open up our material manager and grab a Redshift material, and we're going to drop it on our text. And let's get a little bit closer so we can see what's going on. Then we can open this up, open up our node editor, and we can build our material. And it's actually pretty simple. So let me grab my files. So we have like a Greeble map, which looks like this, and they can all be found like the asset browser, or you can search online, and there's loads of places you can get really cool Greeble textures. And so I'm just going to drag and drop that into our node editor. And then I'm going to grab a bump node. So get a bump map, and we just got to connect these two things together. Something like that, and then like that. So maybe I'll get a little bit closer so you can really see how that's looking. So we just need to change our color space. So when you're working with normal maps and like bump maps and things like that, you want to change it to raw just so we get the correct output. And then in our bump map, because we're using a normal, we're not using like a bump map texture, we need to just come into our input map type and change it to tangent space normal. And then we're going to get the correct look. So we can see, hopefully you guys saw in that render view how it updated, and now it looks way better. Like it looked cool before, but it looks way more accurate now. And Chad suggested when we were doing this to make it like a slightly larger looking texture map. So all we have to do is come into our remap on the bottom right, and we can change this to 0.5, and what it's going to do, it's going to make it look a bit bigger. So we have a bit more to play with, which is cool. Cool, so coming back into here, let's just change the color of this so we have something a bit more like the final animation. Something maybe like that. Okay, so now how do we create the emission that we have? So we had pink and we had blue emission, but what I'll do, because I don't want to take up too much of Chad's time, I'm just going to show you how to set up the pink emission, and then the blue's the same thing. So let me grab a material blender. I'm going to plop that in there. No, here I am. And then with a material blender, it's going to blend between two materials. So we have our base material, which is this one here, and then we just need to create our emissive material. So we can just grab another material node, standard material, come over to our overall tab, and this is where we can control our emission, color, and weight. So we love our neons, don't we, Chad? We love our pink and we love our blue.
We do.
So let's do a little pinky pink. Cool, and I can even solo that so I can see how that material is looking. Yep, it's bright and it's pink. That's what we want. So let me plug that into my layer 1 material color. And then what we need to do is we need to define a blending mask, and it's going to blend between these two materials. And what I ended up doing was this isn't what I'd normally do, but it worked pretty well. Did I close that thing? Yes, I did. Let me go into here quick. I ended up using the AO map just to create some really cool sort of glowing, because it's a black and white texture map, it's going to work really well as a blending mask. So let me just drop that into there.
So you use the ambient occlusion mask as a mask for the material blender?
Material, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you get those slightly like blurry edges as well. So when you're working with like emission and a glow,
yeah, you have like the soft transition like built in from the map.
Yeah.
Smart.
So I originally used the roughness, and it just didn't work as well. So what I'm going to do is plug that into our blend color. And then obviously everyone's going to go crazy. That's because we need to just sort of tweak this map a little bit, and we can do that by using my favorite node. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to invert this, and it's going to invert the black and white colors. And then we can use our knots here to really dial in where this pink emission is going to show. So just like that. And then you do the exact same thing for the blue. You would just create your blue emission, and then you'd use the same thing, and then you just tweak the ramp so it's in the like alternate places. So yeah, so that's the idea of how you'd create this animation. And what I love about this is we can always come in. So if I clear my object cache and just sort of shut that down, it's procedural. So I can come in and I can adjust like my text. So I could come into my object and I could write like, I don't know, anything that I wanted. So we could do that. And it's going to do the same thing. Then all we'd do here is we would just tweak our capsule field to be a little bit bigger. And then we don't really have to worry about changing much. So yeah, all you have to do in that case, you have to clear your cache, because otherwise it's not going to work properly. And then yeah, you can change it to whatever you want, or you could do it with a logo or anything. And so what we did, we ended up rendering this out as an EXR sequence. And then I handed it over to Chad to basically make it look super cool.
Thanks.
So Chad.
Okay, I'll take over at this point. Thanks, Ellie. That was great.
No worries.
It's like really informative. I learned a lot just now in this session, live in front of everyone. This is really cool. Okay, so this is what what I decided to turn this into here.
It went from like a 1 out of 10 to like a 10 out of 10.
Oh, stop.
Everyone's thinking it.
No one's thinking that. I'm going to take this. Oh, it's on. If I take this to full resolution, it feels like it's getting like a little grainy or something like that. So there it is in slow motion as it renders. And what my thinking was here artistically is that like I want to like enhance what Ellie is bringing to the table with the animation, and so I decided to like. Initially, I was kind of like, initially I was very tired because we had the launch last week, and it's NAB, a lot of stuff going on, so I was very tired. So what I thought was, okay, let's back up, and I'm gonna like look at the Disney principles of animation. And so we have an action here. The text is landing. It's like impact text landing on the thingy. And so like 3 of my favorite Disney principles of animation are anticipation, exaggeration, and follow through. So I was thinking, okay, what could I do in each of those steps to bring out those principles of animation? What could I do to anticipate the slamming of the thing? What could I do to exaggerate the slamming of the thing? And then also, what could I do to have like a follow through, kind of like this is a result of the slamming of the thing, which is, I guess, the official title of this, the slamming of the thing. So what I did was like I changed the text to kind of like darken it, and then I had the shockwave and some other things that you can't really see very well, but I'll explain it. And then there's like some shock waves coming through. So let's get into this a little bit. The first thing I do, so this is the original render. So this is like when we first made the EXRs, this is what came out of Cinema, the raw stuff out of Cinema. So one of the things I like to do, again, along with the exaggeration deal, this mouse moves very slowly. It's a very lethargic mouse. Day 3 of NAB.
That was good. Yesterday it was like the opposite,
Yeah,
and I was like, what?
Yep, it was fine. It was like, I got energy, I'm ready to do it. And then it's like, oh man, the mouse is like, oh, I've had so many sessions. Okay, so I'm going to add curves. I just do the standard thing. I mean, I'm not getting anything like insane here yet. And actually, hold that thought. I'm gonna come back to you, Mr. Impact Text. I want to go back to the curves and fiddle with this in the same way. I don't want to lose any of the glow underneath at the bottom. So I'm going to turn down the curves there. Oh, yeah. See that difference? So there's like normal, and then like bring it down a little bit. Although this monitor does have a tendency to be really dark, so maybe it's just going from like black to black more. But, okay, just pretend that you can see the detail if you can't see the detail. I'm going to poke this thing in the eye so I can see just the background. And one of the things I love doing is adding optical glow. This optical glow just has a way of doing its glowy magic in the easiest of ways. Now, you notice when I applied optical glow, it undid all of the curve stuff because like everything is glowing. And sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it picks up different stuff and it makes things glow that you don't want to, but it's such a flexible glow. Yesterday in Ellie's presentation, she was talking about the new rope thing.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, it's like the parameters are like just what I would have named them, you know?
Yeah.
You remember that part?
Written by Ellie.
Yeah. Hashtag Ellie. And so same thing with optical glow. So there's like a highlights only, and I can increase this. Like I don't want everything to glow. I just want the highlights only. So I can increase this slider until the like background glowy stuff goes away, and I'm left with all of this magic. And then I can fiddle with this more. I could take this down a little bit if I want to, and then up the size if I want some more blur on that glow, if I want to smooth that out. And then a new thing that's a semi-new thing in optical glow. You remember the old trap code shine effect that makes like those volumetric light rays shooting out everywhere? That's like really fun. And so you can basically recreate that with this radiate value. So I can increase this. I could have this text kind of like 1980s John Carpenter, The Thing, horror stuff. That was an 80s horror movie reference. It was great. So I could go to the radiate center here if I wanted to, and I can like do this kind of thing, or it's like come from behind. You've seen shine before. But I'm just going to turn this down. I just like the idea that whatever is beneath the surface there, it's been like unleashed by this text falling on this ground and cracking it or whatever. So that's all I wanted to do for that thing. But I did have some fun playing around with the text, and I think it's worth talking about. So I'm going to scoot this thing out of the way. No, I can't. Okay, so I'm going to uncheck this, and then, okay, there we go. One of the things I was playing with was the extractor effect. So the extractor effect, like anytime you're rendering from Cinema and Redshift, it's a great idea to use the EXR file format because it's so powerful, and you could dump a bunch of different stuff in there. You could dump a bunch of different render passes we call AOVs, which can contain data that's just the emission and just the whatever thing. There's like a bunch of different properties you can put in. So then in After Effects, you could use this extractor effect to then extract all of those channels. So if I click this little drop-down thingy here, by default, the red channel is set to the red channel. That's with RGB, and alpha is usually set to the A, or it says copy, but you could just manually set it to the A if you want to. But what's cool is I could go into the red channel here, I think, right? There you go. Sometimes it's like so fiddly, this effect. It's like you got to be right on that little arrow, and it's like a certain part of the arrow. I don't know. It's very, very finicky. Like, don't touch me. And so you have to like really kind of like sneak up on it and touch it in just the right way, and then it's like, okay, fine. So what I want to do is, I rendered out some render passes from Ellie's stuff. So I have the matte, I have the specular lighting separated, and of course I have the emission, which is the illuminated text. I have that all separated. So what I did was, I went to the green channel, and I used the matte, which actually I'm going to make this transparent so you can really see what I'm doing. And if I did the matte for all of the channels, so if I set each channel to its corresponding matte value, it's going to make everything black. This is allowing me to make like a matte object that's just kind of like the transparency, but like the alpha channel essentially. But I have each channel individually. And the benefit of that is I can now say, okay, well, all these other channels are taking from their respective mattes, AOVs, but the red channel, there we go. So let's get the red channel, and let's take it from like the green emission channel. So it's not going to make everything green, it's going to make everything red because it's coming in from that thing. So I could take the red channel from the green emission, or I could take it from the blue emission, or whatever. And so now we're being able to like isolate and control exactly how we're using the channel data and the AOVs that came up from cinema, and there's some interesting stuff. So one of the things that I did in the final version was I actually took, I think I'm doing this wrong, so I'm going to hop over and cheat for my thingy that I did here, and I'm going to solo this. So there's a lot, this is a congested desk space, so I'm not able to like get everything super easily. But what I did in the final was, I used, okay, never mind. I used all the emissions, red, green, and blue, and then I used emission red for the alpha. That's what it was. So I'll do emission red and emission green. Boy, all the times I'm having to go back to these drop downs. It's working for me. I appreciate you, Mr. Extractor. So now I'm going to take the alpha channel from the red channel of emission, and that gives us this thing. So that kind of knocks out all of the areas. Anything that didn't have emission is knocked out automatically. And then also the alpha channel is just kind of a little unpredictable because it's coming from the red, it's coming from one of the color channels. So it's kind of like semi-transparent in some places and completely opaque in other places. And so now I can turn off the transparency, turn off the transparency, and then there we go. And that doesn't really have the impact that I was looking for. Impact, get it? But it doesn't have the impact that I was looking for because it doesn't, this is a black background, but when we turn on the background, there we go. So you're seeing like in spots like this that we have like transparency, that has some stuff kind of showing through it. So that's not that impressive, I guess. But the result is not that cool. But the idea of using the different color channels to mix and match and do whatever you want to with AOVs and After Effects is kind of a cool thing, even though that's not the best example. Okay, another thing that I did is I want to exaggerate this impact. So I went over to the exact spot where we first hit this, right? Bam, right there. Bam. And I wanted to change this to exaggerate the text so it's a little bit different before that. So I split the layer using Command-Shift-D on the Mac, Control-Shift-D on the PC. Bam. So now I have this layer at the impact point and afterwards, and then also before. So on the before, I can kind of like change how I did stuff. And this is what I was getting confused with before, because what I did on the previous one, very briefly, is I did the emission in the green channel and the matte in the green. So this is where I was getting confused before. So on this one, I will leave this as is, but then I will, it was emission green, I think, and then we used the alpha for the channel. Yeah, and so then I could use like curves and like I could drag this down. Maybe I'll do this. and then I could use like hue saturation to kind of change that color. I'm not super worried about that, but I made this like darker. I wanted to kind of feel like, those like glow sticks, like a Halloween, or if you're a partier and you go to raves or something. That's what I've been told. And so like you have these little glow sticks, and and then like they kind of have like this glowy color, but then like you whack them, and then they split open, and then they glow more. So that's kind of like what I was going for this, where it's like darker, but there's like some potential, and then boom, it like lands, and then kapow, it like comes alive. Now, of course, we'd want to make this glow more and do some other cool stuff to it to, well, let's add optical glow. It's looking kind of sad and lonely here. Optical glow.
If in doubt, add optical glow.
When in doubt.
When in doubt.
When in doubt, optical glow. So then I want to go to the bottom of the optical glow, the alpha channel. By default, for some reason, it blocks out the alpha channel, so we just go to extend, get that alpha channel back, tone down this zany amount, and there we go, and we have now this cool thing we could fiddle with. So then we have this thing where it's like, boom, it's exploding, and that's really fun. Boom. Okay, now, the other element that I wanted to talk about was, I'm soloing that thing. Okay, stop soloing that thing. Is this little shockwave. Now, I tried a few different ways to do the shockwave, but, I forgot about one other thing that's really cool. Let me show you this really quick. There's an effect in Universe, which is a cool suite of effects. As a trainer for Maxon, like we go teach people all the time. Like we teach like companies that buy like Teams licenses or something. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay, that's true. And so then like 5 licenses or something like that, and you get to us. We get to come and like talk to your people or whatever and teach you.
Package deal. You get us included.
Although I don't know if that's a great like sales pitch. Like, hey, we come along with the thing. We're optional though, so you can choose not to. Anyway, so I'm teaching a lot of people about like Universe, and some people are like, oh no, I don't use Universe. I'm this like hoity-toity fancy pants workflow, and we're better than that. Because it like Universe works on like editing systems and stuff like that too. So a lot of like snobby designers are like, oh, it's on Premiere. Well, then like I'm too good for that. But like Universe is actually an amazing suite of effects that does all kinds of great stuff. And a little while ago, they released an effect called Electrify, and it's amazing. It adds like it's kind of like a fractal, noise type deal, but it just kind of like ripples through your text. But it's like auto animating, and it like it can do stuff. It kind of comes on and moves around, and it uses like image contours. So I don't have to go back and try to extract the image data, the motion data from After Effects somehow, or use tracking or any of that kind of stuff. I just apply it, and then it works. So if I preview this now, I'm just gonna make my work area that size. You can see now that we're getting these little flashes of like little like. Bzz. Now it's making. Oh, there it is. Bzz. Sound effects help. But if I'm soloing this, there we go. And then again, there we go. Bzz. Yeah, there we go. So it kind of creates that thing that I was looking for with the I wanted to add some follow through. So this is how I created follow through with Electrify, because then it jolts when it lands, and then just kind of like still does it as if like the electronic circuits that are there are kind of like out of whack now because that impact was so dang impactful. So then I could fiddle with this. I took up the evolution speed, and that's not super thrilling. I'm just going to move on from that. We're going to be in the booth afterwards, by the way. So if you're like, how did you increase the evolution speed on that? Then you could come talk to us, and I'll show you.
Burning. That's going to be the burning question.
Yes,
everyone's going to want to know.
Queue
afterwards.
of people like, please, we have to know. The speed on that evolution was incredible. I can't figure it out. Okay, so now we can get to the other thing, which is the particular blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to create a solid, and I'm going to go ahead and apply trap code particular. Now, while I'm loading this up, Nevada state legislation prohibits having more than one amazing trap code particular presentation in a day. Unfortunately, Hashi went first, so he has to have the amazing particular presentation for the day. So, to be a law-abiding citizen, this can't measure up, but unfortunately. Maybe next time we'll trade things around a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the designer. Like I mentioned, I'm a trainer and stuff. And so I'm always telling people to use the presets, because it's like there's so many amazing presets. But then a lot of times when I'm doing stuff on my own, I'm like, no, I'm a trainer. I don't need presets. But then I always go to presets all the time because it's like, oh, this is amazing. So I was trying to do effect and I couldn't figure it out. And then there's this preset here called Ring Shockwave. And I was like, okay, they already figured this out. Why am I trying to reinvent the shockwave? You know, like someone's already done this, and it's pretty great. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply this preset, and now this preset is in my thing, and it's great. Now, obviously, I say it's great, and it is great on its own. You know, it brings something to the table. It's special and it has value in its own unique way. But I need something that matches my deal here, right? So one of the things that I did, I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to copy and paste this layer over because I don't need to be making a mask in front of you all on the fly here. So one of the things I did here is I'm going to go to my systems. I'm going to click. Okay, I don't need all this other business. I just need system 1 and system 2. Am I soloing something? Yeah. Where'd my particular go? Oh, it's already okay. So what I want this to change color, obviously, which is easy. And then I also want this to follow the shape of my text. And what this is doing, and this is like a little shout out for the presets. The presets are a great school. If you're kind of like, oh man, I wish I could create that thing. Well, just like apply it and take it apart because you can figure it out. So if I look at like the primary system here, then we can see that, and also if I click on it to select it and open up the emitter type, it's just a sphere, and the emitter behavior right here is set to explode. So it is just like shooting out a thing of particles in a sphere, like this, like that. And so I like that behavior, I like all that stuff, but I want it to not be a sphere, I want it to come from a mask. So what you have to do is it can use a mask on a different layer, or time, okay. The mask on a different layer that's a 3D layer. So it can't use a mask on its own layer, and it has to be a 3D layer. So check mask, and then it says, okay, buddy, where do you want to get your mask from? But you have to go down here to the text mask emitter thing. And then I choose the layer, a well-named mask layer, you know?
Love it.
That was smart of me. And then I'm going to make sure that I use the masks there. And that should have done something cooler than this. Okay, there we go. So we're seeing our mask shape. There we go. That mask shape is coming in. And obviously that doesn't look super great, so I need to fiddle with this a little bit. So there's particle density edges, which is the edge of the thing, and then particle density faces. And I love that they split this up into these two things, because particle density faces is dead to me. We had a falling out a little while ago. And anyways, and I'm going to increase particle density edges, and then we have this thing. Now, the second system, which is already set up for me because it's preset, it uses something called emit from parent system. So this first ring of particles, this initial ring is like lackluster, it's kind of like whatever. But we're using that as the emitter to shoot out other particles, and the extra ones that are shooting out, that's where the magic is. So I turn this on, and you can see that now. And it's a little bit, you can kind of see behind the curtain, like the wizard behind the curtain from Wizard of Oz. It's a movie that...
Movie reference.
Movie reference, yeah.
I don't get those.
Yeah. Okay, so we have these particles here, and you can see like these little particle trails. So then we could go over here and maybe increase the particles per second, which makes this like a little bit more dense going this way, because again, each one of the particles from our parent system is an emitter. It is like a particular system. And so we're shooting out all these trails. So then if we're like having these gaps right here, these gaps, then I can go back to my parent system and say, hey, we need more particles there. So it's kind of confusing because we're doing this in a non-standard way. So like I've taken particle density edges as far as it can go. So what I actually need to do here on my parent system is go to flocking, because we're using that physics simulation flocking in order to create this motion. So we can actually have these particles hey, listen here, bucko. Okay, there we go. So I take up separate, and these things separate, and if I take down 0, then they like stay together. So the way that we set up our parent system is going to set up what the trails that come off of it in the emit from parent system are going to look like. So I can fiddle with target attraction. So like right now, like these particles, the attraction is making them actually expand because it's a negative value. So they're kind of going out like so. So I can take down target attractions so that they kind of grow a little bit faster. I can increase maximum speed, so this all happens a little bit more quickly as well. And then as I preview this, and also I zoom out to like a rational level. Now we could have to zoom out that far. Okay, there we go. And there you have it. And there's the stuff. And also, one more thing. These extra particles here, they're being, you see like in like this, I love this kind of like a little warbly business. On the second system, there is in this displace area a turbulence field that's running through these particles, or rather the particles are running through the turbulence field. So I can increase that by taking TF displace down a bit. I said, well, there we go. Oh, I have to do it more. Okay, there we go. So as I do this, you're starting to see that the trail of these particles is starting to distort a little bit. Now, by adding a bunch more particles and fiddling with the color and the opacity, then we get this final result. Bam. Bam. There's probably a better sound effect than bam, but okay. So then you could kind of see it's some of these frames, you're seeing this kind of like a distortion there, where we have like the turbulence of those particles, and there you have it. See, like there's like a, the darker text. It's a glow stick waiting to break open. There it goes, and there's that. I also animated. Yeah, we don't need to talk about it, but I animated some stuff in the background that you can't really see, so it's not important. But there's that. So yeah, it was really fun working with you on this, Ellie. Like to be able to like take stuff from your world and then bring it into mine, and like kind of use like our feature sets to kind of like collaborate and make something together. So. And
I think what's so cool is we didn't have like loads of time.
Yes.
So it was kind of like, okay, what can we make in a matter of like however long, and then make it look really cool in Red Giant stuff.
Yeah, it was very, very quick. We didn't have a very long turnaround. We didn't have much.
No, because we had like the launch that we were prepping for, and then it was like NAB a couple of days later. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, cool. So we have a day maybe to do something.
Yeah.
But it's nice because it makes you think of, okay, what if I don't have loads of time to think about a whole project and do this and do that? And it was just like, okay, let's just open up the software and try and make something cool.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was fun.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, thanks everybody for like hanging out, and you at
thanks
home
so much, everyone,
for watching on the journey as we went from cinema to After Effects, and that's our deal. Yeah, thanks.
All right, let me turn this on and give a lot of feedback. No, wait, look, no feedback. Hey, my feedback. Sorry. Hello, internet. So
Not today, feedback.
I know we have some questions from the internet, but live audience gets priority. You get priority. So if you have a question for Ellie, our resident AI and metahuman, or Chad,
a real human boy,
a
real
human man. Okay. So no. Okay. No questions.
Nothing about evolution speed.
No. No.
Just kidding.
How do you do my project for me? That's the number one question. How to make Toy Story is what we first thing. We start with an idea, and then okay. So we're gonna go into our internet questions, and I'm just gonna ask this. This is the first time. Oh, really? No, internet, please. Is this your only question? Internet, do better. All right. The question is
calling your mom. Internet.
Yeah. Right. What are the Mac specs?
Oh.
The internet wants to know. Fine, we'll go there. You want to go to my computer or all that?
In all fairness, like it is like that is kind of like the template question. So like you have to know.
Yeah.
Well, it's day 3, and they just asked.
I feel like it wouldn't be a session of ours without someone asking.
Oh,
what hardware are you using?
It's legit now.
Yeah.
Now it's real.
Yes,
now we made it real.
Session, now we made it a
like
real.
The Pinocchio session. It's like no, it's like been blessed.
Now it's real. Someone asked. So there's your specs, internet. Are you happy?
So we're on the
Mac Studio
M1 Ultra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you for those really outstanding questions. We'll do better. We can do better.
It's fine, internet. You did well. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But stay tuned. Ellie and Chad will be in the back of the booth. Also tomorrow, if you do have questions, you can find them, and they can dive into all the stuff they showed or anything else that when you're doing Ask the Trainer and all the other fun stuff. They'll be
Absolutely.
around for that. Stay tuned. We're going to move to our next presenter, Anna Carolina, who's going to be showcasing what she does with ZBrush. So stay tuned. We'll see you right after this.